After telegraphing it for a while, Trump signed an executive order designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. This is a bit of a step up from the types of extremist classifications that trans people were just recently put under. As a sort of a analog, the Biden administration had a classification for extremists that included like people like the Proud Boys, but those people weren't all criminalized immediately and weren't immediately like subject to government scrutiny in the same way that this subjects people to government scrutiny. So let's just read it and talk about it. So first of all, you have a right to have your own political opinions. There's something in the First Amendment called the freedom of speech, but we also have the freedom of petition, which means we're allowed to complain to the government about what the government does, and we have the freedom of the press. These are all First Amendment rights, but the freedom of the press is that we're allowed to write and openly talk about our beliefs. So when they designate something like Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, Antifa isn't a organization like how back during the George Floyd protests, there was an organization called BLM that ran concurrent with the BLM protests, which are a wider movement. This is a ideology, just an ideology. And there's no organization to go to. So in a like kind of a fucked up way, like the way that they do this Tren de Aragua, the way that they used to do it with MS-13 when it was Mexicans, the way they associate every single person in the target group with a gang or a terrorist organization is a way to like directly attack people without on paper violating their rights. Because of the Patriot Act, there's no expectation for rights for terrorists. So they can do things like detain you for unspecified amounts of time without talking to a lawyer. They could do stuff like fucking kill you, and you can't do anything about it. I mean, I don't know if that's happened before, but they could. They often take people's property. They can take everything you own under the pretense that you're a terrorist and you're using it to fund terrorist activities. So it's wild to designate a political ideology as a terrorist organization. It's like designating libertarianism as terrorism. That ideology is shared by numerous groups, but that doesn't mean that they're all connected, interconnected, and that doesn't mean what they're doing is criminal. They just have a political ideology that is different, and in this case, mirrored different, like it's the exact opposite political ideology of the current administration. That is like a very dangerous thing. So let's read what the White House says about it. This is funny. They have Democrats have shut down the government at the top here. And it says that it's going to shut down. It's been shut down for 21 hours. So probably the most like shitty, bitchy White House in history, by the way. And it's titled Designating Antifa as a Domestic Terrorist Organization. Section 1. Antifa is a terrorist threat. Antifa is a militarist, anarchist enterprise that explicitly calls for the overthrow of the United States government, law enforcement authorities, and our system of law. It uses illegal means to organize and execute a campaign of violence and terrorism nationwide to accomplish these goals. This campaign involves coordinated efforts to obstruct enforcement of federal laws through armed standoffs with law enforcement, organized riots, violent assaults on ICE and other law enforcement officers, and routine doxing of and other threats against political figures and activists. Okay, one of these things is not like the others. Antifa recruits, trains, and radicalizes young Americans to engage in this violence and suppression of political activity, then employs elaborate means and mechanisms to shield the identity of its operatives, concealing its funding sources and operations in an effort to frustrate law enforcement and recruit additional members. Now, the reason why they feel frustrated is because there's no central funding mechanism, especially for the people who wear masks. They're known as Black Bloc, and it is not a group, it's a technique of protest. So even like two groups of black bloc, that doesn't mean that they even fucking know each other. They are using the exact same tactic for protest as each other. Catching one isn't catching the other, and finding out the funding, it's like people's jobs. Like, a guy paid his personal money to go to this protest and to buy his pepper spray mask and stuff like that, you know. It says that they train radicalized young Americans to engage in this violence and suppression of political activity and recruit additional members. So interestingly, Antifa, anti-fascists don't pay each other to join anti-fascism. It is a moral stance. It's not like one that people are paid to do. But there is like a whole conspiracy, and I've seen this locally, where the local conservatives of this town accuse the local protesters of being paid, even though they're like neighbors of these people. Like, I plan to go to the September 18th 50-51 No Kings protest in my town, and that's the same protest that other people were calling fabricated in my town, because they think that there's like a funding mechanism for these protest groups, and there really isn't. I mean, you can get like training materials if you're like hosting it, but as a protester, I'm just expected to show up that day and hold a sign up, you know. Individuals associated with and acting on behalf of Antifa further coordinate with other organizations and entities for the purpose of spreading, fomenting, and advancing political violence and suppressing lawful political speech. So this is trying to say cancel culture, basically. And then it's trying to imply that the left killed Charlie Kirk right here, talking about political violence. This organized effort designed to achieve policy objectives by coercion and intimidation is domestic terrorism. No, it's fucking not. That's not domestic terrorism. The mechanism that people are using to silence people's legally free speech or whatever is critiques of their moral character. So it's a terrorist activity to call you a piece of shit for being a piece of shit. Like, it's just ridiculous. Good luck fucking throwing me in jail for that. I welcome it. Designation as a domestic terrorist organization. Because of the aforementioned pattern of political violence designed to suppress lawful political activity and obstruct the rule of law, I hereby designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. All relevant executive departments and agencies shall utilize all applicable authorities to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle any and all illegal operations, especially those involving terrorist actions conducted by Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa, or for which Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa provided material support, including necessary investigatory and prosecutorial actions against those who fund such operations. Let's go back to this. Let's read this sentence again. Who does this include? All relevant executive departments and agencies shall utilize all applicable authorities to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle any and all illegal operations, especially those involving terrorist actions, conducted by Antifa, or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa, or for which Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa provided material support, including necessary investigatory and prosecutorial actions against those who fund such operations. So it's saying that if you give a dollar or a sign to the guy who's Antifa, then you're also Antifa, and they can dismantle and disrupt and investigate your operations. They're calling it illegal, but what is legal under a criminal White House? General provisions. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedurable, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. So yeah, designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Antifa is in a group, so it's basically criminalizing individuals. If you are a group of these individuals that share the same idea, congratulations, you're now a terrorist cell.